All right, good evening, everyone, and welcome to the MMU USD 6 to 8 Virtual Academy Information Meeting. My name is Ben White. I'm the Director of Curriculum Communication, Innovation, and now Virtual Learning. And tonight, I have a special guest, and that's Jeff Renard, the Director/Principal of the Vermont Virtual Learning Cooperative. And also, I have our usual tech and question team for all of our town halls, Jeff Wallace, Technology Director in Network Engineering, Kevin Hamilton, Principal of Browns River Middle School, running the questions. So tonight we hope to be able to overview the 6 to 8 Virtual Academy, and then also spend a great deal of time answering any questions that families may have. And we have a really great special guest to be able to help us answer those. So I wanted to first start by talking a little bit about what the Virtual Academy is. And we specifically use the language of Virtual Academy to encompass that these students, the families that choose the virtual learning option, are really still our students, and they're still the students of the school that their home school that they're being sent from. So this all stemmed from the Agency of Education wanting to allow districts to provide more options to families during these unprecedented times, and that was a 100% virtual learning option. So we're very excited to be able to offer this, and we feel really empowered that it's going to be very comprehensive and rigorous, while also providing the flexibility that many families we know need. For those who are unable to commit to the hybrid schedule in the district, or their family situation is just different and they need to have some type of flexible option. So I just wanted to lead with saying that the language of that Virtual Academy is to really reference that this is very much a program that is, these students are still our students. So as I mentioned, we're going to be having questions in a town hall style, and I'll save those to the end. But I wanted to talk a little bit about the Virtual Academy locally for what it looks like before I hand it off to Jeff Renard. The Virtual Academy, as I mentioned, is a really exciting and unique opportunity that we're able to offer, and we're very fortunate that Jeff Renard and his team at the VTVLC is providing such a great opportunity for Vermont schools. It's very, as I said, very comprehensive, very rigorous, and highly engaging. So we're excited for that. It is 100% virtual instruction. It's, as I mentioned, it's a partnership. It's going to be, it looks different in K-5 as it does in 6 to 8. And for 6 to 8, the instruction will happen from Vermont educators that are also partnering from all the districts that have signed on with the VTVLC. There's of course going to be some educators through MMU USD that we will prioritize our students getting that educator for. If we have a math educator that's MMU USD, we're going to put our students with our own teachers, but we're not going to be able to fill all the content areas. So this is the same for many other districts. Students that are in 6 to 8 will receive instruction from different Vermont educators for those core content areas: ELA, math, science, and social studies. On that same thread, we are very much working to connect those students virtually with their home school so that they can still participate in the morning meetings, which is a really great social and emotional bonding time for our students, and we really want to maintain that connection to the sending school. The curriculum for 6 to 8, well, for K to 12, it's been nationally based on the national standards, and it is aligned to Vermont proficiencies. So it's also a very comparable schedule to our hybrid model in terms of the hours that students will be receiving. So for what we will offer locally in MMU USD and what VTVLC will offer is an important thing for families to know. So we are providing some educators. So there, as I said, we'll have some educators that are from our district that students will have, and that could be ELA and math or science and social studies. It just depends when we finish enrollment. And then the other content areas will be filled by Vermont educators that are also a part of the VTVLC in our other districts that are involved with this. We're also going to be providing a district coordinator, which is me. I'm the director of virtual learning now. And I will be providing local oversight and connecting with families and acting as that liaison between the VTVLC and our sending schools. So you'll definitely hear a lot from me, and I'll be connecting with families just to ensure that everything's off to a smooth start and really just supporting students. A part of that supporting students is we still will be able to offer any of that support that students were receiving, whether it was working with social workers, working with special educators, working with psychologists. Any of that we're going to try to provide virtually, just as we would with any of our students virtually in our hybrid model. So we're excited that we can still offer all of those same supports as needed for families and students. And of course, student devices. We will provide any family that needs a device, we'll provide them with a device. And that goes the same for internet. If families do not have reliable internet, we have a process for being able to support families with that as well. The VTVLC is super comprehensive in the fact that they have a well-practiced approach within a learning platform known as Canvas. And that is something that many districts are just not capable of doing. So we're really excited to have such a comprehensive approach to the actual learning platform for a fully remote program. And that's in addition to their ability to have a student management system. The online content is from the Florida Virtual School and eDynamics, which Jeff Renard will walk everyone through visually in a video in a little bit. So you can kind of get a peek at what the curriculum will look like. I would just also say that our website, we try to keep everything very transparent. So we have almost too much information on there in terms of the curriculum, so you can really dig deep into what's being offered, and especially for families, knowing that you're partners in the learning, it's really important for you to know, what the curriculum is, and we understand that. So we're making it all available. And then, of course, the support that VTVLC will provide is pretty much unparalleled. I mean, they're really working very collaboratively with us as a school and other districts to support not only the teachers through very comprehensive in-service training, which is a week long, but that's also the continued PD that they'll be providing through their support. So we're really excited for that partnership. So without much further ado, and without talking Jeff Renard up too much with the VTVLC, I'm going to let him take it over for the next few slides to walk you through what his perspectives are and what students and families will experience.
Great. Well, thank you so much, Ben. It's a pleasure to be here tonight, and thank you everybody for attending and giving up some of your evening time. As Ben mentioned, we're really excited to partner with districts around the state to be able to provide these virtual academy options. I'm Jeff Renard, and I created VTVLC back in 2009. So we're now well over a decade into operation. We're part of the public education system here in Vermont. And when we were founded, it was really to provide three things for students around the state. The first is availability of courses. So a lot of small schools have a very difficult time making sure that they can offer a broad range of courses for students. So we bring teachers from all over the state who are employed in a Vermont school directly to the students so that they can have a greater availability of courses that they wouldn't otherwise been able to take locally. The second thing that VTVLC does is provides greater accessibility for students. And that really focuses on the ability for students to access courses that they may have scheduling conflicts to deal with at their local schools. So larger schools that typically might have a larger catalog of course offerings for students, that's great. But if students want to take a course that's offered at the same time that there's a course that they have to take, they have to make some difficult choices. So part of what we do is just providing the flexibility for students to be able to access courses at a time that makes the most sense for them. And then the third thing that we really try and focus on is flexibility for learning. And that looks differently for every student. For instance, if I had to take AP Calculus in the morning at 7:30, I would probably fail. Let me take it at 1 o'clock in the afternoon and I stand a fighting chance. So online courses, one of the biggest strengths of online courses and online learning is really the flexibility that it provides both students and families to set a learning program at home using a lot of asynchronous. I'm going to use a lot of terms tonight that may or may not make sense, and I'll try to explain them as I go along. Ben hopefully will catch the rest of them that don't make a lot of sense. But asynchronous learning just really means things like email discussion forums. If the curriculum's totally online, me as a student, I can access that at times when it makes the most sense for me. So you might consider if you have multiple children at home, everyone's trying to use the internet at the same time. Asynchronous learning really provides an opportunity for students to log in, work on a course, and not be competing so that they can work at different times and not compete for internet resources or bandwidth that might be delivered to your home for internet. So I'll go more into that in a minute, but really I just wanted to highlight the fact that VTVLC, again, started in 2009, and we really try to focus on that greater availability, accessibility, and flexibility for learning, and that's been our goal now for 11 years. And just as a side note, I've actually been a Vermont educator since 1993. I know I don't look that old, but I've been around teaching high school, middle school, career technical education since the early 90s. So I'll talk a little bit about the middle school programs, and then I'll actually dive in and show you what the courses actually look like, because those questions, obviously, students and parents want to know the most about. Probably the number one question that gets asked is, what does my day look like as an online student or a parent of an online student that's doing a fully remote program? What can I expect on a daily basis? So first off, I would say that for middle school and high school specifically, everything that a student is enrolled in comes with some type of choice. So these are discrete courses, meaning that in addition to the core academics, students will also have access to a variety of different electives. And I know Ben's been working really hard to finalize what that catalog is going to look like, which we hope to have available over the next few days so that parents can begin making those choices with their students in terms of what those electives are. But that could range from programming courses, languages, as well as a variety of other health PE courses in addition to those. So middle school students will enroll in discrete courses, so you'll have your choice, which also means that 7th and 8th grade students would, again, based on local decisions, be able to enroll in things like algebra or other typical high school courses, but at the middle school level. So it really opens up a lot of opportunities for students to have that greater availability of courses. Each course will be taught by a different teacher. So Ben mentioned that part of what VTVLC's role is this upcoming year is really supporting schools and districts to provide high quality, fully remote online learning programs to students and their families. We have scaled everything that we normally do. We've served over 10,000 students since our inception. And now we're actually branching out to include K-5 students, as well as many more full-time students than what we would normally see. But in partnership with districts that are setting up these virtual academies, we're able to work very closely, provide what expertise we have and what systems we have to really help individual schools and districts be successful in providing full-time remote programs. So each teacher will be prioritized in terms of a local teacher for your local students. And then having that greater availability means that we're partnering with all of these districts that have some amazing teachers that are going to be able to provide a variety of courses that may not be available in either a hybrid program or in a fully online program if it was done locally. So we've really been able to bring the state together have a statewide set of teachers to be able to provide those the greater availability of courses for students. In all cases, regardless of whether it is a local teacher from your district or a teacher from a neighboring district, teachers will be communicating with parents. There is a very streamlined communication process within the learning management system and what we call the learning ecosystem, which is all of those tools, all of those online tools that VTVLC uses to conduct online programs. But it brings everybody together into the same platform. So parents, not only will you have web access, but you'll also be able to download the Canvas app, which you can install on your phone, whether it's Android or iOS. You can choose to get notifications immediately. So say, for instance, a teacher posts a grade that you've been waiting for your child. You can get notified right away. You can get daily summaries or you can get weekly summaries. So in terms of the communication, you'll also be receiving emails. You'll be able to log in and see the feedback that teachers have left for your students in an effort to improve their proficiency. We do have reassessment, especially for formative assessments, and we want students to go back and improve their understanding of the standards as they relate to the individual topics in the modules. And again, I'll get ready and show you what those courses look like here in a moment. So each of you will have what's called a Parent Observer account. You'll be able to access that either through that Canvas app or on the web platform, be able to log in and again, see what your child's doing, take a look at the curriculum, review the work that they've done, look at the teacher feedback, and really be able to get a better feel for the day-to-day work that your child is doing. In terms of day-to-day activity, one of the things, again, that the strengths of online learning is really providing flexibility. So I want to spend just a couple of seconds and talk about that flexibility and what that actually means. So typically in a school environment, students would have a Monday night work, Tuesday night work, Wednesday night work. Online learning, because of the way that the curriculum is constructed, students actually have flexibility for, instead of daily assignments, looking at the work that they need to complete as weekly assignments. So week 1, week 2, instead of Monday night's work, Tuesday night's work. And providing work in a weekly structure provides students the opportunity to do a couple of things. The first is it provides them scaffolding to help develop skills like self-direction and self-directed learning. It also provides them the opportunity to reach out when they get stuck, to contact the teacher, to email the teacher, to have video conferences with the teacher. All of the teachers will have what we call online office hours. So those will be posted right on the homepage of the course so that students will know when they can reach out to the teacher for additional help. The teacher will more than likely video conference with the student. But the teachers also use extensive feedback through the grade book in Canvas. And they can provide markup on Google Docs or PDFs or Word documents that are submitted by students. Show the students exactly how to improve. In addition to text and markup on documents, teachers can also leave audio feedback, they can leave video feedback, and they can provide a broad range of ways to support students to improve the proficiency with the standards in the course. So that's kind of the weekly overview of the flexibility that's provided for students. I'll talk briefly about synchronous versus asynchronous because I threw that term asynchronous out there for a minute. Asynchronous, again, that provides that flexibility for students. It's having everything at your fingertips and being able to access it when it makes the most sense, both for the student and the family. Synchronous is an example of what we're doing right now. So we're all in the same place at the same time virtually, but we're able to talk to you, respond to questions that you have, but it requires us to allocate that time in advance. So telephone calls, video conferences, those are examples of synchronous activity. So in addition to the homeroom or advisories that Ben was talking about that students would be participating in with their classmates back at the school, teachers will also have seminars, content seminars. So because your students will be taking multiple classes with multiple teachers, they may be scheduled for 20 or 30 minutes at a time over the course of the week, where teachers will present information to help and guide them through the content and the expectations for completing the assessments and the work over the course of the week. So those are examples of synchronous activities that the students would be doing with the teachers. In addition to the online office hours, that students can book additional time with the teachers. In most courses, there's also an assessment type called a discussion-based assessment. And that's exactly what it sounds like. It's an opportunity for the teachers to talk with the students, to ask them questions, and to make sure that they're able to communicate their understanding of the material. It's also a way for us to demonstrate academic integrity, that students are actually able to communicate their understanding of the material and kind of back up the work that they've submitted in the course as their own. So those are the opportunities that we use for assessment and to double check student understanding in the material. So what I'd like to do now, Ben, if it's okay, I'm going to go ahead and screen share real quick. And I'm going to, actually, I think it works better if I mute my video and share this screen. If you could just let me know when that pops up. Can you see that okay?
Yep, it's up.
Excellent. So this is an example of an 8th grade language arts class. And I just kind of picked one at random. They all look very similar, but you'll notice that it's very easy to navigate, very easy to see what happens next. And I'm just going to go through a couple of different highlights in the courses. I am in a student view right now, which is why it's outlined in pink instead of in the teacher view, which has a lot more tools and a lot more information that might be on there. So over here on the left-hand side, you can see this is what we call the left navigation. But across the top is the name of the course. The name of the course won't be Master Middle School Language Arts 3. It will be very specific in terms of like 8th grade language arts, and it will have MMU in the title as well as the teacher's name. So just to kind of look at initially, here's some navigation. So I'm going to click on the Getting Started button. You can see it pops up the navigation, and I'm going to click on the first link, which is Things to Know. Actually, I am going to go back and reload that page. Sorry about that. It's been sitting for a while. So here's an example of walking students through what they need to know. So you can see up here, there's drop down, page 1 of 2. I can go to page 2 of 2. It's very easy to navigate, so I know exactly where I am in the course. Before I dive into this too much, though, I want to go up here where it says Notes. So you may or may not have heard of Cornell Notes. This actually walks students through what a Cornell Note is. It overviews the information very clearly. You can see here that in addition to text, there's also recordings that students will be able to listen to.
I read through all of the lessons. I never miss a page. But when it is time to study for my exams, I don't know where to start. I read through all of them.
So there's an opportunity to not only read what's on the page, but also to listen to it. Lots of recordings, lots of videos, in addition to very clear navigation through the course. And you can see it actually walks students through the process of the Cornell note-taking process and prepares them to be able to take the notes on their own in that format. Every step is outlined both in written text as well as with audio. And students can, again, interact with the content, see exactly what the note-taking process looks like, and really be able to understand. And the beauty of it is, if they don't get a certain step, they can actually go back, re-listen, re-watch, reread, in order to make sure that they're very proficient with that note-taking system before they get started. There's also a glossary at the top. This contains a variety of different terms that are in the course so that students can look those up and do some pre-learning activities. And if a student wanted to print out a page, let's say, for instance, they were going to go outside, they wanted to read a few pages rather than sitting in front of the computer, they can hit print. I'm going to go ahead and open this up at a preview window, and you can see it will print out the page so that I can read it and refer to it later on if I want to. So I'm going to go back to the home page, and I'm just going to pick one of the lessons. Let's say life-changing innovation. There is a pre-test at the beginning of each module, and you can consider module being like a chapter in a traditional textbook. So I'm going to jump ahead actually to the first page and bypass the pre-test. So you can see here, there's some text. It overviews what's going on in this chapter or this module. As I flip through, it shows me the different objectives that at the end of this lesson, I should be able to do things like identify comparisons in text, identify the purpose of text comparisons, and define and identify analogies. So it's very clear in terms of what I'm going to be learning in this particular module. So as I flip through the pages, you can see there's going to be some text, there's going to be some audio, video, there's going to be some interactive components that I'm going to be doing on the page. There's going to be various links and resources that click out of that page so that I can refer to those to dive deeper into a given topic. This is an example of what an interactive might look like. So select the arrow in each tab to see how categories are used to compare things. So I can click, interact with the page, and click on question marks so that if I get lost along the way and I need to understand the steps again, I can do that. At the end of each module, that's where you're going to see a sample quiz. So this would be just to check my own learning to make sure that I understand that's everything on the page. But it's very clear in terms of what I'm going to get ready to do as my assignment at the end of the lesson. So I'm going to read the lesson, I'm going to finish the activities, and then I'm going to go on to assignment. And I'm going to submit the 1.01 connections quiz. So the connections quiz should be outlined and let me know exactly what it is I need to do. I can check grades. Again, look at the feedback from my teacher, see where I need to resubmit that assignment and improve on the work that I've submitted. And then the teacher feedback would be visible to me, whether it would be in audio format or in written format. So that's a quick overview of the course and what they look like, as well as an overview of the weekly workflow and daily workflow that students would have in a middle school online program. Ben, back to you.
All right, back to Ben. So just talking a little bit more about supports. As I mentioned, that I'm the director of virtual learning as well. So I'll be locally overseeing this, and families will be in touch with me. So there's definitely going to be a liaison in addition to having each course content teacher. So families will have access to teachers as well as to myself. And my goal is to really just make sure the overall experience for each family and student is top notch. And I think I'm very confident that this is going to be a really great system, and I'm here to help. And part of that is keeping students connected with their schools virtually. As I mentioned, we're really looking to enabling that for virtual meetings, but also anything that is virtual that is outside of the curriculum in terms of something that we can connect social emotional supports, or if there is something such as band instrumentals, there's a lot of options that we can help support families with to keep them connected with their schools. So that'll be something that we'll explore more. But I'll be working with principals who are very supportive of embracing students in this new and different learning experience this year. And of course, coordinating the local supports of if counselors are needed, psychologists, social workers, any of the other supports that have been available to students. We're really going to be working to provide those virtually as needed for our students that are in the virtual academy. And as I mentioned, that's involving check-ins with myself, so I'll also be having office hours. I wanted to talk a little bit about registration. So for 6 to 8, the registration is going to be done locally by us in partnership with the VTVLC. Next week, we have a week-long orientation in service with the VTVLC where we dive into registration. But what I would say is that families who have already filled out the survey or indicated to their local school that they want to do virtual, we have all that information, and we will be then inputting that into the enrollment. And as Jeff had mentioned, the enrollment will essentially be those core content areas: ELA, math, social studies, science. And in the event that a student was in an advanced math program in their local school, then there is the ability to potentially enroll them into an advanced program in the virtual academy. And I'll work with families on an individual basis through their local school to ensure that they're going to get into the appropriate grade level and rigor course that they were experiencing previously. So part of that is also the electives, which is, I think, is very unique, that there is a wide range of electives that the VTVLC is making available, from computer science to coding to tech ed. I think there's just so many that are getting developed, and that's a benefit from having educators from across the state of Vermont with all these unique different endorsements that they can offer. So we're really excited for a different selection of electives, and I believe, Jeff, that the recommendation from the VTVLC is to really focus in on one elective in the first semester to get the feet on the ground, per se. Is that correct?
Yeah, so just like with going from elementary school to middle school to high school, there's always a 2 to 3, maybe 4-week period where students want to know in that traditional brick and mortar environment, where's my locker? How do I get lunch? Where's the restrooms? How do I make it from class to class? And it takes some time to kind of adapt to that new learning environment. The same thing happens with online learning. There's a lot of skills that students are going to be learning, like self-direction, independent learning, as well as communication skills using various forms of technology. So it'll be really important, especially this first semester in the fall, to really be able to develop those skills, develop confidence, and be able to feel that they have mastered the ability to use the learning ecosystem and be able to reach out to teachers when needed. So because of that, we recommend usually students in the fall would take no more than a total of 5, maybe 6 classes. So if you look at 4 core subject areas and elective, that really rounds out the number of courses that we would recommend to start in the fall. In the spring, if students are feeling like they've mastered the workflow, absolutely. Add in another elective, look at the other options that are going to be offered for them, and be able to add in a couple of more courses. And again, that's something that they can talk with Ben about in terms of getting connected to additional courses in the spring semester.
Great, thanks, Jeff. So I want to talk a little bit more now about enrollment. So we talked about registration. The enrollment, we asked that families consider it through the lens of a year-long option. And I think for the most part, families look at it that way, but we also understand that things are unpredictable right now. And family situations may change. This online virtual academy may not work for a student. So by no means we want to keep families and students locked into a choice. So the VTVLC allows for enrollment, open enrollment, we'll say, on a semester basis. So they have a fall semester and a spring semester. The fall semester ends approximately somewhere in December, January, and that's something that Jeff will work out with the other adjoining districts to determine the exact date. But that's an opportunity for families that would like to transition back to their homeschool. They'll totally have that option. And it's also the option for families that are not enrolled in the VTVLC to enroll into the VTLC. Those families that are choosing to enroll the first semester will have priority. So if there is an issue with enrollment in terms of capacity, the families that have been enrolled they'll retain their seats and their priority for enrollment into the next semester. But there is the option for families to come into the program. So I just want to make that clear. And then the enrollment deadline is August 17th, which is next week. And we're hoping that if families have any remaining questions that have them on the fence about choosing virtual academy or just going into our regular hybrid program as of now in the school district, to reach out to me, to read our website. Our frequently asked questions document is pretty comprehensive. I add every question that we could ever get asked on there, but there's always a new question. So we really want to help you make that decision. So please don't hesitate to reach out. And I hope to be able to send a introductory email to families sometime around August 21st. And that's really just confirming the enrollment and just locking everyone in. So at that time, that would be where everyone would say, if you were not wanting this option and you didn't realize that you had selected it, you would just say, no, Ben, this is not what I wanted. But we've had principals confirming enrollment this past week. So we feel really confident that we've got a really good representation of enrollment. So with all that being said about giving information and answering questions, we wanted to open up the YouTube chat, which is already going, and allow for questions to be asked, and we'll do our best to answer them. So I'm gonna jump right into them. Are quizzes timed? So Jeff, I think this is a good question for you.
A great question. Typically, quizzes are not timed. So the assessments are not timed. Formative assessments are usually opened up for at least 2 initial attempts. And then teachers usually want to talk with students before they go back and reassess a 3rd time. Otherwise, we've seen students, when you open up a quiz and they just take it again and again and again, teachers go in and they see about 8 seconds elapsed in between each attempt, and the student took it maybe 14 or 15 times. So that's learning by osmosis, and repetition is not always useful. So usually the formatives are locked down to 2 attempts initially, but certainly we want students to go back and reassess again after they've had a chance to talk with teachers. So the short answer is nope, they're not timed, and they do allow for reassessment.
All right. How can students communicate with each other? Jeff, this is another one you probably can answer better in terms of the platform itself.
Yep, great. So most of the conversation that's going to take place between students would be during synchronous sessions. So that would be class topic overviews or content seminars that the teachers provide. Many of the courses, especially in the 7th and 8th grade level, also include discussion forums, and that's an opportunity for students to exchange ideas, answer questions, respond to each other's questions, and really have time to reflect on what they want to contribute to the conversation, instead of necessarily being put on the spot and asked a question. Say in a traditional classroom environment, students would receive the prompt, they'd see the question that the teacher's asking, and they'd be able to think about it, reflect on it, and then enter in their comment into the discussion forum to contribute to the conversation. So those would be typically the primary ways that students would interact with each other. Some courses do have what we call collaboration projects, where students would be able to work with each other and be able to contribute to a common project or document or video that they're creating. It just depends on the individual course in terms of what that would look like.
Great. Thank you, Jeff. Will texts be used? So I'll speak to this one and then kick it over to Jeff. But the design of the virtual program is to include all the information virtually. But of course, if students are wishing to access libraries within the school district, that is definitely an option to them as well. So we can always support families with that. But Jeff, I'll let you speak to will text be used?
Yeah, in almost all cases, the content is all inclusive on the in Canvas. So students will have access to all the text, videos, audio, everything they need. In rare instances, primarily at the high school level, for instance, maybe for some AP courses, or maybe if your child enrolls in a programming course, there may be additional materials that might be needed, but in almost all cases, everything is included inside the course shell.
Is there a connection to classes, teachers, peers, and that are participating in hybrid schooling option? So we are planning to connect the students that are in the virtual academy with their home schools. So those students who would be participating in morning meetings and they're in the hybrid program, or if they're on a hybrid day or in person, our goal is to be able to still have the students in the virtual academy very much a part of that school community in the sense of the morning meetings, and also any of the other virtual events that happen that are related to social activities. Of course, with barring any guidance, whenever there's sports or after-school activities that become available. Those are all things that these students in the virtual academy will still be able to access. So we're very much doing that, especially at the 6-8 level. So I'll move on to the next question. Do teachers monitor how long students are viewing the text? Jeff, I think I'm going to have to give that one to you.
Yeah, that's a great question. Part of the overall assessment process that some teachers will do breaks down into two categories: activity and participation. So activity can be thought of as essentially attendance information. So is the student logging in? When are they logging in? And for how long did they log in? Now, that does not tell the entire story about whether a student is going through the course and actually developing proficiency, obviously. So we also rely on information about participation. And participation means, for a page that might have text on it, does the student just click through and what would normally take maybe 2 or 3 minutes to read? Did they just click through after 5 seconds? So normally that information, the participation information, is not necessarily monitored the same way that the activity is. So we want to make sure students log in fairly regularly. Again, there's flexibility throughout the week. So, best practices is the students will be logging in 5 days a week. And as Ben said earlier, the amount of time that students are going to be spending in each class over the course of the week is about equal to what they would normally spend in a class in a brick and mortar environment. It's not really until we're trying to figure out how best to support students. If we find that some students are struggling within a specific course, if they're having problems with maybe, developing proficiency with some of the standards, we will go in and we will take a look at what the students are doing, how they're doing it, and make some suggestions back to the student about how to improve. It may be that you request a meeting with the teacher, or maybe you want to meet with Ben and or myself. So we're able to kind of review that information with you, kind of do a deeper dive in terms of how best can we help support your child to improve. And again, that would be another example of when we would look at that information.
Great, thank you, Jeff. Please speak to special education services. Thank you! Exclamation mark. So this might be a three-person response. I'll kick it off though. So special education services, IEPs, 504s, ESTs. We're getting outside of special ed, but all those services are still included within this virtual academy experience. We are hoping, based on enrollment, we're sending 1 to 2 special educators that will actually be a part of the virtual academy model. So they'll have a designated caseload within the virtual academy. And then those special educators will also have access to the Observer account that Jeff had mentioned, so that they're able to assist. And just as they would in the regular environment of as Jeff said, the brick and mortar in person, they'll still be able to do that virtually in terms of those accommodations and working with an IEP team. Not being a special educator myself, I'm going to send this one to Jeff to speak a little bit about how that operates in other districts, and then kick it over to our special services director, Mary Lundeen. So back to you, Jeff, and then to Mary.
Great, thank you, Ben. So a lot of the typical accommodations that students would receive in terms of reassessment, extended time, text-to-speech, preferential seating, a lot of those accommodations are actually included in for all students who are in online courses. And as Ben said, the special educators will have observer access. So they'll be able to go in and see students' progress, probably look at the activity and participation of each student that they're working with, and be able to meet with them to provide specific services as needed, right from within the course, or schedule time to work with those students individually. So with that, I will turn it over to Mary.
So I would agree with everything that Ben said. That is our plan. We will have a special educator or 2 assigned, depending on how many students we have in the virtual academy. And that person will be case managing and delivering special education services to students in the virtual academy. IEP teams will be meeting. And so for students who are choosing the virtual academy, the IEP team is really going to be talking about that as their gen ed curriculum. And so the team will be looking at what are the services that the student needs to be able to access the virtual learning academy. And so the team will be making sure that the services are appropriate as well as the accommodations.
Great. Thank you, Mary. And back to Ben. I would just say that we're very lucky to have Mary Lundeen, our new Special Services Director. So between all of us, this is going to be a very, very amazing experience. So we're going to be working with families very closely. When you refer to electives, are you including PE as one of the electives, or could PE plus another elective be an option? And then the second part of this question is, do courses run on a semester basis, not a full year? I'll answer the second part. As I said before, the courses will run on a semester basis. So the 2 semesters, first semester will end somewhere in between December and January. And as I mentioned, that could be an open enrollment time to transition back to the sending school or for kids to come into the program. And in terms of PE, I don't want to misspeak on that. So I want to ensure that Jeff answers this one.
Great. Thank you, Ben. I was actually going to defer to you on that one. But just to kind of talk briefly about what Ben just said, courses are year-long, but the segments, we call them segments in the online world. But each semester would be, segment 1 would be fall, segment 2 would be spring. Those would be the core academic courses. And then the electives, typically like PE, even though that's not legitimately an elective, but a variety of the different elective courses would be 1 semester long or a segment. So if a student took, for instance, some of the available courses might be computer programming, that would just be a single semester course. So being able to add that either in the fall or in the spring would provide more flexibility for students to be able to take additional sections of electives. So computer programming 1, computer programming 2, or coding 1, coding 2. Digital photography is a half-credit option. So those are the types of courses for the elective category that students would be able to pick from each semester.
Okay, great. Thank you, Jeff. How does the school curriculum match the virtual curriculum? So I'll answer this and I'll let Jeff chime in after, but it's very much consistent. I know that we've had quite a few educators that have kind of taken a peek at it on a more in-depth level and have felt that it's, very close in terms of the objectives and outcomes. Also, with being aligned to national standards and being locally in Vermont, it's really very much aligned to the proficiencies and what we are expecting holistically of our students in 6th, 7th, and 8th grade in terms of outcomes. So we're feeling very confident that it's very close. Of course, it will be different in a lot of ways, but in terms of those outcomes, they will be very much, they're all tied into the proficiencies that we all work on, and even in our local curriculum in terms of national standards and Vermont proficiencies. Jeff, do you want to speak a little bit to that with your experience in other school districts, even though you're not necessarily too familiar with our curriculum?
Sure. And that's one of the, again, advantages of being part of the public education system is we play by the same rules and abide by the same statutes that all brick and mortar schools do. So in terms of aligning content to national standards, state and national standards, we make sure that all of the curriculum that we use is mapped to and helps develop proficiency for all of the content standards. In addition, we also assess transferable skills at the middle and high school levels. And again, those are the self-direction and communication skills that students we help to build proficiency with. Again, because we work with every school, every district, every school in every district is different. So we want to make sure that we're able to satisfy all of the minimum requirements and then some. And typically, the scope of each of these courses is fantastic. Just a quick word on the curriculum itself. We actually work with two curriculum providers, online curriculum providers. Florida Virtual School, who's actually a public school in the state of Florida, they've been developing online content for their in-state use since 1997, when Florida Virtual School was started. And as a courtesy and an opportunity, they make their content available through licensing to other states. And it's used in not only every other state, but it's also used internationally for various overseas programs as well. Fantastic content. Again, we've been using them since we started in 2009, and they've just done a fantastic job improving their courses, making sure that if there's any problems, they resolve them very, very quickly. And they actually offer courses within their state for a minimum of 2 years to make sure that all the bugs are worked out, make sure all of the standards are covered, and they verified student progress and proficiency with the content to make sure that it does what exactly it is that they've designed it to do, and before they release it to other states to be able to use. So we're very proud to be working with Florida Virtual School to use their content. We also work with eDynamics for a lot of the elective courses. They're a fantastic organization to work with, and we've been working with them for 5 years. So that kind of gives you a broad overview of the content and the MAP standards and how they interface with different schools and districts around the state.
Thank you, Jeff. That's a really great overview. So if each course has synchronous components and are being taught by different educators, how are conflicts in scheduling prevented? It's a very great question, because it's a scheduling question. That's also going to be Jeff. So Jeff, that one's going to be you, unless you want to kick it to me.
Yeah, so typically, and I will kick it back to you.
We can do volleyball, Jeff, in a little bit.
Yeah. I'll add my 2 cents in here first. Typically, what we do is we recommend any content seminars or any new information that teachers are going to be providing for courses in synchronous sessions be done on a specific day. So Math Mondays, Science Tuesdays, etc. So each teacher that's going to be doing some type of overview of the topic for the week that's going to be doing it synchronously would have a dedicated day that they would be assigned to provide those lessons. Now, with that said, a lot of teachers are also going to be creating screencast to overview content as well, answer specific questions. Because all of the teachers are Vermont educators and they have years of experience and a variety of different learning tools in their toolbox as educators, they're able to preemptively think about what questions are my students going to ask at what point in the curriculum. So they're looking at the content, they're previewing it, they're making sure they know what's going to be covered that week, and they know from their experience in the brick and mortar environment, this is where students are going to get tripped up. This is where I need to insert an additional resource. This is where I need to do a screencast to overview exactly how this mathematical concept works. And they're able to leverage that experience into the online classes. So that's kind of a broad answer of both. How are we going to abide by these scheduling conflicts or minimize scheduling conflicts, but also how teachers are going to provide a lot of different asynchronous ways to preemptively answer students' questions.
Great. Thank you, Jeff. How do you envision the connection between the students in the virtual school versus hybrid? How might they integrate into programs? So I talked a little bit about this, but just to say it again, we're really looking at any of those virtual connection opportunities, and this is going to be very much a virtual year. We're really confident that we're going to be able to connect students with their peers and their teachers within their local school for 6 to 8. The principals are really going to be working hard to ensure that we can, when appropriate and when safe and when it makes sense, to connect those students into the different social activities as morning meeting, any type of events that are virtual, any in-person events that are school-wide events and celebrations. Of course, those are things that students will be able to attend. So we're really, there's a lot of opportunity for that, and a lot of it will fall also on the family in their current situations and what they feel comfortable with. But it will be just as if we were offering different events and celebrations, but the instructional, core instruction, academics will be primarily done within the virtual academy. And as I mentioned earlier, there's opportunities for things that might not necessarily be offered within the virtual academy, such as band instrumentals. We definitely want to be able to support our students in those areas. So I think that's something that's also a possibility, but there's a lot of potential, and it's a really great collaboration. There are only 22 people on the live stream. Are you able to disclose some virtual versus hybrid numbers? I'll do it off the top of my head. I believe we're probably sitting at around 80 students, in maybe between 80 to 100, more around 80 students for middle school level. So that's just off the top of my head. It's definitely something that we don't have any problem publishing, so we can provide that in future communication for sure. Will students be connected with the same grade peers? Yeah, I can answer this one for Virtual Academy. If a student is in the Virtual Academy in 7th grade, they will be connected with 7th grade students within that Virtual Academy. Jeff can correct me if I'm wrong, but there's not going to be a blending of 7th and 8th grade students. They're enrolled in a 7th grade specific or an 8th grade specific course. And then when we create those connections back at the local school through morning meeting, it would be with their same grade level, or however the school establishes their schedule. They would be fitting into that in terms of morning meeting, just the same as other students would.
Yeah, the only thing I would add to that, Ben, is in the case where a student may want to take an accelerated course like Algebra 1, they may be mixed with some 9th graders, potentially. We actually years ago had a 4th grader take geometry. Did amazing, by the way, but those are rare instances. But that would be kind of a special opportunity for students to be in a class where it's on a single grade level class.
Great point, Jeff. Thank you. And that kind of leads into this next question. How would you accommodate a student who's gifted? So, Jeff, I think you just said this, but when we enroll students into a program, we're very much trying to have it be consistent with what they've been receiving. So if a student was in any kind of advanced math or any kind of advanced program, then the Virtual Academy, we would want to try to enroll them in an equivalent to that. This is something we generally do that at the local level within our buildings. And I believe, Jeff, as you mentioned, there's the capacity that students who are within a different advanced programming in a local district, then that same opportunity would be a potential in the Virtual Academy. Do you want to speak a little bit to that?
I can speak to it very quickly. Yes. Yes, absolutely. So there's a variety, again, availability, accessibility, and flexibility for learning. We stand by that, and every child is treated as an individual, and we'll be able to have courses that are appropriate for them to take.
Will students have a dry run getting into the program before the first day to be sure that all goes well the first day? Excellent question. Jeff, I'm going to give this one to you.
Sure, that is an excellent question. So as I stated earlier, when students go from elementary school to middle school to high school, there's always those first few days, if not a couple of weeks, where there's an acclimation process. How do I upload an assignment? How do I schedule time to meet with my teacher? Where do I check my grades? Where's the feedback? Fortunately, it is relatively a short process in terms of becoming fluent with the online learning ecosystem that we use. So courses by design are somewhat slow to ramp up over the first 2 weeks, specifically to allow for that acclimation process. So the workload for students, especially in those first 2 weeks, is going to increase very slowly. Now, by the 3rd week, students know their way around. They know how to submit assignments, and they know how to get a hold of their teacher. They have a variety of different people reach out to them within the learning management system to be able to contact them for additional support. So they know where and how to get those additional components. So it's built into the process. It's built into the system. We actually have a student orientation in the courses that students will be able to access. There's tutorials, both video and written guides. for them to kind of access and be able to understand how to navigate. There's also a lot of resources for parents, because parents, you're in the same boat. This is all new to you as well as to your students. So we want to make sure that parents understand, how do I do this? How do I check my child's grades? And there's guides and information available to all of you as well. Even though you don't want to admit it sometimes, there's always help and materials available for you to get that support. And Ben will be there as well.
Jeff, you're doing a really great job of segueing into future questions without knowing what the question is. So this one is, what should parents expect for time to assist students each week?
Yeah, perfect segue. So again, the first couple of weeks is going to look very different once a student knows how to use their webcam, knows how to use their computers, can access the internet. Most students already know how to do that. So really the amount of time is going to be based on what the parent, how involved the parent wants to be in terms of their oversight of their child's program. So do you, again, setting up your app, do you want to receive grades daily? Do you want to see them, receive them as they happen? Do you want to get a notification at 11:02 a.m. when the teacher posts the grade for a child's assignment? So you're able to go in, customize those settings, and then be able to send an email, say, hey, I just got my child's grade on this assignment. It looks like they did really well. Is there something that you feel, and I read your feedback that you gave to my child about improving. I have a couple of questions about that. Can we take some time and meet and discuss what that might look like and how can I help them do better? So those are options that each parent is going to have to make based on some of their own preferences. But again, what happens the first couple of weeks and what happens the first couple of weeks with a sixth grader versus what's going to happen the first couple of weeks with an eighth grader may look very, very different. But typically, I tell parents, if you're spending more than an hour per week really kind of guiding your child after those first 3 or 4 weeks, we probably need to provide some additional supports in terms of, looking at, does my child know the way around the learning management system? And we would have reached out long before those questions came up. We're constantly both input from the teachers as well as the input from VTVLC student support and the work that Ben and his team is going to be doing to really be able to provide those targeted supports as they're needed.
All right, I'm just going to be mindful of time. We have 2 questions left, so I'm going to answer these 2, be respectful of Jeff's time because I know you have other engagements as well tonight, more meetings. So the next question was to confirm, parents no longer have to opt for the virtual academy for the whole year. We were told we had to make a 1-year commitment. So the design of this is we are very much encouraging families to consider this as a full year, to consider it as a full year commitment and to look at it through that lens, only because for the consistency of the program itself and being enrolled in a different learning environment with new teachers, it's going to be the best to be able to keep things the same. Especially when it comes to following the curriculum, because this, even though our curriculum is, we have very similar outcomes, it is different. So we want families to consider it that way because there's a lot of unique value to going into the virtual academy. And part of the reason that families want to do that is because they have more control over the stability of the educational landscape. So no matter what happens in the schools, a snow day, changing of schedules, for the virtual academy, everything stays very much the same. In that same breath, just as we would offer in our schools, if something isn't working for a student or for a family, if we are unable to help mitigate that and solve it and create a good solution for a family or student, then we don't want to continue down that path. So that's where the VTVLC allows for the students who the program is not working for or the family situation has changed, there is the potential to move back into the sending school, just as there is a potential to come the other way. But as I said, we ask that families look at it through a year-long commitment, but know that when we say the word commitment, we're really just, it's a frame of mind in considering that we don't know what a family situation will be 3 to 4 months from now. So just to make that clear, it is something that is very much, we're going to work with families and really try to support you in every way possible. But at the end of the day, if it's not working, we're going to also work with you as well to find a better solution. The next question, are the courses students enrolled in determined by pre-assessments? I'll answer it and I'll let Jeff correct me if I'm wrong, but the courses that students will enroll will be, for instance, if it's ELA course, it's arranged ELA 1, 2, and 3. ELA 1 being 6th grade, 2 being 7th grade, 3 being 3rd grade. I jumped that around. 7th grade, 3 being 8th grade. And the same for the other courses. There are those options where there could be an advanced course like pre-algebra, but for the most part, it's designed to be a course for the grade level. And so pre-assessments, the only pre-requirement is that they are in 7th grade or 8th grade or 6th grade. Jeff, do you want to correct me or say I'm right?
You're right, Ben.
All right. Great. So at this time, I would just like to close with saying thank you to all the families that were able to attend this. This meeting is recorded, so if anyone wants to rewatch it, it will be available in the district happenings that we send out on Fridays, as well as on the same link. And as I said, I will be in touch soon to send an introductory welcome email sometime next week once we confirm enrollment. But I definitely would just like to really thank Jeff Renard for being here, devoting the time to this. He's been a rock star in Vermont online learning right now, and we're really excited, and we feel really, really confident in the program we were going to offer for families for the Virtual Academy. So thank you again, Jeff Renard.
Thank you, Ben. I appreciate all your hard work and effort, especially from everybody in your team around the district. It's great working with you, and I really look forward to supporting the work that teachers are going to be doing to support your families. Thank you, everybody.
All right. Have a good night, everyone.